The chandeliers inside the Ritz-Carlton Central Park ballroom glowed like molten gold, casting perfect reflections across champagne glasses and designer gowns. Everyone was waiting for one moment, the grand entrance of Logan Carver and his new fiancée, Brianna Cole. But the moment that froze the entire room wasn't theirs, it was mine. I stepped through the marble archway in a simple black dress, rain still clinging to my hair, my heart pounding so loudly I could hardly hear the string quartet. Conversations died mid-sentence, cameras lifted, gasps rippled like shockwaves. Because everyone here knew exactly who I was. I was supposed to be the woman marrying Logan tonight. But instead, I was the woman he discarded, after taking the only heirloom my mother left me, and now he had the audacity, the cruelty, to give my diamond ring to his mistress as an engagement gift. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the cold truth I carried inside my coat. The truth that would crack Logan Carver's perfect world wide open. I scanned the crowd until I found him, tall, polished, wearing a charcoal suit that still held the faint shine of arrogance. Beside him, Brianna sparkled in a champagne gown, flashing the diamond ring like a trophy. My mother's ring. When Logan finally saw me, his confident smile faltered, just for a second. But I caught it. The guilt, the panic, the realization that I wasn't staying silent. The host stepped toward me, whispering, "Miss Hart, you're not invited." "I won't be long," I replied softly. "Just here to return something." I walked to the center of the ballroom, every heel click echoing like a countdown. Logan's jaw tightened. Brianna rolled her eyes. Guests leaned forward, sensing the storm about to break. I reached into my coat, pulled out a thin envelope, and lifted my eyes to Logan. "Your engagement ring," I said clearly, "is worthless." And that was when the ballroom erupted. If anyone looked at me that night, standing in the center of the Ritz-Carlton ballroom with rain-soaked hair and a heartbeat louder than the orchestra, they would never imagine the life I came from. I wasn't born into the marble halls and crystal chandeliers of Manhattan's elite. I was born in a sun-faded house in Ohio, where my mother used to tell me, "Evelyn, diamonds aren't just stones, they're stories." Maybe that's why I became a gemologist. I loved the certainty of it, the science, the clarity, the precision. In a world full of people who lied, manipulated, and pretended, diamonds didn't lie. They couldn't. At 30, I worked at the Manhattan Gemological Institute, surrounded by microscopes, spectrometers, and velvet trays that held other people's dreams. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. It was steady. It was safe. Or so I believed, until Logan Carver walked in one snowy January morning with a smile that felt like warmth after a long winter. Logan was everything I wasn't: wealthy, polished, magnetic. He had a corner office on Park Avenue, an iPhone that buzzed non-stop with investors, and a silver Mercedes idling outside every time he picked me up. For a while, he made me believe I belonged in his world, that I deserved something beautiful. He told me he loved my kindness, my intelligence, my simplicity. I didn't realize until too late that simplicity, to him, meant easy to manipulate. Yet the deepest ache of all was my mother. She died when I was 26, leaving me nothing but love, and a single diamond ring she said I should save for the man who truly deserved me. I wore it close to my heart, not knowing what secret she had hidden inside it. Logan knew how much that ring meant. He knew it was the last piece of her I had, and still, he took it. Quietly, casually, cruelly, and gave it to another woman. That was when something inside me cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly, like a stone under too much pressure. For the first time in my life, the girl who believed in clarity finally saw the truth. Logan didn't just break my heart, he awakened something in me, something he should have never provoked. New York has a way of swallowing people whole, especially those who don't come from its glittering towers or legacy families. For 3 years, Manhattan had been both my battlefield and my sanctuary. By day, I worked inside the Manhattan Gemological Institute, a sleek glass building off Fifth Avenue where everything smelled faintly of lab polish and ambition. Rows of microscopes gleamed under cold white lights, and gem trays lined the steel counters like silent witnesses to 1,000 secrets. It was the kind of place where people wore tailored suits, where every conversation was about market fluctuations or auction houses, and where a misplaced breath could cost someone $1 million. Yet somehow, I fit there. Among stones, among truths, among things that couldn't pretend. When Logan began taking me into his world, the contrast was blinding. His office tower on Park Avenue was a monument to wealth, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, glass conference tables, a Mont Blanc pen always waiting beside his MacBook Pro. Even the silence there felt expensive. Assistants moved like ghosts. Investors came and went in Mercedes and town cars. Logan walked those hallways like he owned not just the building, but fate itself. And for a time, I thought I'd found my place beside him. He'd pick me up in front of my institute, stepping out of his car with the confidence of a man who believed the world would rearrange itself for him. We'd drive past Central Park, past the plaza, past people in gowns and tuxedos, heading into charity galas Logan always said we'd attend soon. But soon never came. Instead, his world became a place where shadows lingered. Late meetings, canceled dinners, vague excuses I tried to believe. His phone face down, his eyes distant, the smell of a perfume I didn't own. Still, the most defining setting wasn't a tower or ballroom. It was my small studio apartment on the Upper West Side. A quiet refuge with a chipped desk, a warm lamp, and my mother's ring sitting in a Tiffany box on the windowsill. Every night, the Manhattan skyline glowed outside my window, whispering possibilities. I clung to that light, because deep inside, I sensed something shifting, something dark, sharp, and heading straight toward me. I just didn't know the storm would start with that ring. Logan Carver wasn't the kind of man you noticed, he was the kind you remembered. Everything about him felt intentional. The tailored navy suits, the sharp haircut, the watch that glinted under meeting room lights. He had that polished Wall Street confidence that made people lean in when he spoke, even when he said absolutely nothing. To the outside world, Logan was the dream. To me, he became the warning I never saw coming. He built his fortune through a venture fund he launched in his early 30s. The kind that invested in clean tech one week and cryptocurrency the next. And because Manhattan worshipped success more than morality, Logan rose fast. Too fast. He learned early how to bend people, charm them, use them. How to make loyalty feel like a privilege. I didn't understand the danger until much later. Behind the boardroom smiles and champagne promises, there lived a man who feared mediocrity more than dishonesty. Logan wasn't cruel in loud ways. He was subtle. He criticized softly, praised sparingly, and apologized never. Every mistake became my fault. Every doubt became my insecurity. Every missing piece of affection, he blamed stress. But his worst flaw was entitlement. He believed the world, and the women in it, existed to serve his image. That's why he never asked before taking my mother's ring. In his mind, nothing truly belonged to me. Not even that. And then there was Brianna Cole. If Logan was a fire built from ambition, Brianna was gasoline. Beautiful, polished, self-assured in a way that drew cameras like moths. She had hundreds of thousands of followers, a curated life, a perfect smile that widened whenever someone wealthier walked into the room. Logan adored that. The admiration, the clout, the way she made him look more desirable. But the most dangerous thing about Logan wasn't Brianna, or the lies he told, or the ring he stole. It was how convincingly he played the role of the good man. He never raised his voice, never shattered a glass, never stormed out. Instead, he delivered small, strategic cuts, disguised as logic, concern, or disappointment, until you questioned your own reflection. People like Logan don't implode instantly. They unravel slowly. And the night he slipped my mother's ring onto Brianna's finger, thinking it made him untouchable, he set that unraveling in motion. He just never expected I'd be the one to pull the thread. The betrayal didn't hit me all at once. It came in fragments, small, sharp pieces that didn't form a full picture until it was already too late. It began on the Thursday afternoon, The kind of gray Manhattan day when the clouds hung low over Central Park, and everything felt slightly heavier than it should. I was in the lab, adjusting the lighting on a sapphire when my director rushed in, pale and breathless. "Evelyn," he said, "you need to see this." He slid his iPad across the counter. And there it was, bright, glossy, unavoidable. A live stream notification from Brianna Cole. "Engagement revealed tonight!" I wouldn't have clicked it. I shouldn't have. But fate is cruel, and curiosity is a wound that likes being reopened. I tapped the screen. The video loaded. Crystal champagne glasses. A penthouse balcony overlooking the Hudson. Brianna laughing in a gold dress. And then, Logan stepped into frame, holding a small velvet box. My stomach tightened as he opened it, and the ring inside caught the light. My mother's ring. On another woman's hand. Presented to millions before I even knew it was missing. Brianna squealed, flashing the stone toward the camera. 2 carats. Logan says it's priceless. I knew every inclusion, every facet of that stone. I knew because I had studied it under a microscope since the day my mother gave it to me. And the irony was almost poetic. It wasn't even a diamond, not a real one. Logan didn't know the truth. Brianna didn't know the truth. The world didn't know the truth. But I did, because my mother, cautious and brilliant, had swapped the real diamond years ago to protect it during a rough time in her life. The ring they flaunted, the ring they celebrated, the ring they built their fairy tale on, was worthless, completely worthless. But the humiliation didn't stop there, because at the end of the live stream, Logan lifted his glass and said, "To new beginnings and leaving the past where it belongs." The comments exploded with congratulations. He hadn't just moved on. He had rewritten our story, publicly, without ever looking me in the eyes. And that was the moment the betrayal crystallized into something else entirely. Resolve. Cold, clear, and sharp enough to cut. I didn't break all at once. People imagine heartbreak like a dramatic collapse, tears, screaming, shattered glass on the floor. But the truth is quieter, slower, almost polite. It waits until you're alone, until no one is watching, until your strength finally gives out. For me, it happened the night after the live stream. Manhattan glowed outside my window, 1,000 glittering lights mocking the dull ache in my chest. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the lab coat I'd forgotten to take off, staring at the empty Tiffany box where my mother's ring once rested. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept replaying the moment Brianna lifted her hand toward the camera, showing off the stone like she owned it, like it had never held meaning for anyone else, like it wasn't the last piece of my mother I had left. And Logan, smiling, toasting, performing, like the years we'd shared were a boring chapter he couldn't wait to skip. I pressed my palm against my forehead, trying to steady my breathing, but every inhale felt too loud. Every exhale felt like surrender. I tried to distract myself, opened my MacBook, stared at emails, pushed away tears, but the edges of the screen blurred until I closed it again. It wasn't just losing him. It was losing the version of myself I had when I was with him. The hopeful woman, the trusting woman, the woman who believed she finally had a place in this city. I curled onto my side, pulling my knees to my chest. The apartment was silent except for the hum of traffic. My phone buzzed repeatedly, messages from coworkers, missed calls from my director, notifications from gossip accounts already circulating the engagement video. My private humiliation had gone public long before I was ready. A part of me wanted to disappear. Another part wanted to scream. But the strongest part, the part I didn't recognize yet, began whispering something else entirely. Get up. Not yet. Not like this. Still, the breakdown continued. Tears slipping silently into my pillow, breaths turning shallow, the weight of betrayal pressing heavy on my ribs. I let myself cry until there was nothing left to spill, because somewhere underneath the grief, something sharper waited. The beginning of my transformation. The shift happened 3 days after the breakdown. Quiet, unexpected, disguised as a routine morning at the Manhattan Gemological Institute. I arrived early, hair still damp from the shower, eyes tired but sharper than they'd been in days. I wasn't ready to face the world, but fate doesn't wait for readiness. It moves when it chooses. My director found me in the lab, adjusting the lens of a gem microscope. "Evelyn, a package came for you." No one sent me packages. I frowned as he handed over a thin, padded envelope. No return address, just my name typed in clean black letters. For a moment, fear flickered. Logan? Brianna? A journalist fishing for gossip? I opened it. Inside was a folded note and an appraisal form. A familiar one. My breath caught. It was the original certificate for my mother's ring, dated nearly 20 years ago, stamped by a private jeweler in Brooklyn. But there was something else, another sheet tucked behind it, a second certificate, signed by the same jeweler. This one was marked confidential. Hands trembling, I read the handwritten message on top. "Evelyn, your mother wanted you to know this when you were ready." A chill swept through me. The confidential certificate was detailed, precise, unmistakable. The real diamond, 3 carats, flawless, rare, had been removed and stored under your mother's name. The ring she left behind was a replica, the stone Brianna was flaunting. The stone Logan said was priceless. Wasn't worth more than $50. But the real diamond, the one hidden away, was worth more than Logan's entire luxury facade. My mother hadn't been careless. She had been protecting something. Protecting me. I sank onto the nearest stool, heart pounding, the truth unfolding with terrifying clarity. All this time, Logan thought he had stolen something valuable. All this time, Brianna thought she had won. All this time, the world thought I had been replaced. But the greatest twist wasn't the worthless ring. It was the inheritance they never knew about. The stone my mother had safeguarded, the one now legally mine, a fortune, a legacy, a weapon. And the note ended with 6 words that changed everything. Use it when the moment comes. I finally understood. The moment was coming. Transformation doesn't arrive like lightning. It creeps in, slow and deliberate, until suddenly you're no longer the same person who cried on the edge of her bed a week earlier. For me, it began the moment I folded the confidential certificate back into its envelope and realized something startling. I wasn't powerless. I had been holding a weapon without knowing it. That morning, I walked through the Manhattan Gemological Institute with a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. The hallways felt different, or maybe I felt different. I wasn't the woman Logan discarded. I wasn't the quiet gemologist who apologized for taking up space. I was my mother's daughter, and she had left me the means to fight back. At lunch, I found myself at a small corner table in a cafe near 5th Avenue, hands wrapped around a warm latte as I reviewed every document twice, then a third time. The numbers were real. The signatures were real. The vault information? Real. I wasn't dreaming. I was stepping into a truth that had been waiting for me. But fate wasn't done. Just as I slipped the papers back into my bag, a familiar voice interrupted. "Evelyn?" I looked up. Nathan Ellis, tall, calm, with that quiet strength that made the world around him seem less chaotic. A man whose sincerity contrasted every sharp edge of Logan. He sat down before I even asked, eyes gentle but perceptive. "I heard about the engagement," he said softly. "Are you okay?" No one had asked me that without expecting a polished answer, and for the first time, I didn't pretend. "No," I said, "but I will be." Nathan didn't speak immediately. Instead, he studied me the way people examine something rare, carefully, respectfully. "You look different," he said finally, "stronger." I felt a small, unexpected smile tug at my lips. "I think I am." When he walked me back to the institute, he paused at the steps. "If you ever need help," he murmured, "or backup, just call." Backup, a word I had never allowed myself. That night, as I stood before my bathroom mirror, I didn't see heartbreak anymore. I saw resolve. I saw clarity. I saw the beginning of a woman who wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time in a long time, I whispered to my reflection, Let's finish this. The shift in power didn't happen in a boardroom or under harsh fluorescent lights. It happened in a quiet corner of the institute late one evening, long after the staff had gone home and the city hummed beneath the windows like distant electricity. I sat alone at my workstation, the overhead lamp illuminating a single folder, the one containing every document about the real diamond my mother had hidden away. For the first time, I opened the vault report. There it was, a flawless 3-carat stone listed under her name, stored in a private security facility in Brooklyn. A diamond so rare it would shatter Logan's ego into dust if he ever learned the truth. And as I traced my finger along the certificate's edges, something inside me clicked into place. Not anger, not grief, strategy. I wasn't going to expose Logan out of spite. I was going to expose him because he had built an entire world out of illusions, and illusions collapse when the truth walks in. My plan was forming when fate tightened the tension even more. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Evelyn, I need to warn you about something. Call me." I stepped into the hallway, heart thudding. Nathan answered on the first ring. "Logan is planning a press announcement tomorrow," he said, voice low. "He's using Brianna's engagement to distract investors, and he's implying you stole the ring." My blood went cold. "He's what?" Nathan exhaled sharply. "He wants to paint you as unstable. It will tank your reputation in the gemology field. I didn't want to believe he'd stoop this low, but he's desperate." I leaned against the wall, breath shallow. Logan wasn't just walking away. He was burning the bridge behind him. "Evelyn," Nathan continued, voice steadier now, "I have documents you need to see about Logan's fund. They're bad, really bad." There it was. The shadow I always sensed in Logan finally had a shape. Corruption, fraud, a foundation built on lies. "Nathan," I whispered, "why are you helping me?" He paused. "Because you deserve better, and because someone needs to stop him." When I hung up, the hallway felt different, brighter, sharper, full of purpose. I returned to my workstation, gathered the documents, and placed them neatly in my bag. Logan wanted a war of narratives. He was about to lose. The next morning, Manhattan felt heavier than usual, as if the skyline itself sensed the storm brewing. I walked toward the institute with steady steps, but inside my chest, panic simmered like a cracked wire sparking against metal. Nathan's warning replayed in my mind over and over. "Logan is going to ruin your name, publicly." By the time I reached my office, the damage had already begun. A cluster of coworkers stood near the entrance, all whispering over their phones. When they saw me, the whispers sharpened. A few avoided eye contact. One woman didn't bother hiding her pity. My director approached, face tense. "Evelyn, we need to talk." He led me into a conference room. On the screen was a trending article from a financial blog. Insider claims ex-girlfriend stole engagement ring to sabotage tech investor Logan Carver. My name wasn't printed, but the description was unmistakably me. The comments were brutal. The narrative was perfectly crafted to destroy a reputation. She became unstable after the breakup. She tried to claim the ring was hers. She has a history of emotional outbursts. All lies, all manufactured, all designed to discredit anything I might reveal. My director rubbed his temples. "There's pressure from the board, Evelyn. You know how delicate our field is. One accusation of tampering or theft." "I didn't steal anything," I said firmly. "He took the ring from me." He sighed. "I believe you, but belief isn't enough right now." The implication hung in the air. Suspension, silencing, isolation. I walked out of the institute before they could finish the paperwork. Cold wind lashed against my face as I stepped onto Fifth Avenue, but it wasn't the weather that made me shiver. It was the realization that Logan had planned this perfectly. He wanted me cornered, discredited, voiceless. Because men like him thrive when their victims are too exhausted to fight. My phone buzzed. Another notification. This time from Brianna's Instagram. A photo of her in a silk robe holding up my mother's ring. Caption: "Someone tried to steal my joy, but he chose me." Tears burned my eyes, not from sadness, but from something far more powerful. Enough. They wanted a villain? They wanted a scandal? They were about to get the truth, and I would make sure the whole city heard it. I spent the afternoon wandering Manhattan without direction, swallowed by crowds that moved with purpose, while I drifted through the noise like a ghost. Every headline about Logan twisted deeper into my ribs. Every notification from gossip accounts felt like another shove toward the edge. By sunset, I found myself sitting on a bench overlooking the shimmering water near Battery Park, hands tight around the envelope containing my mother's secret. The wind pulled at my coat. My throat burned with the pressure of everything I couldn't say out loud. That's when my phone rang. Nathan. I almost didn't answer. Shame clung to me like wet clothes, but something in my chest told me to pick up. "Where are you?" he asked, voice calm, steady. "I've been looking for you." 20 minutes later, he appeared through the fading light, his coat blowing in the wind as he walked toward me with a determined stride. Without asking permission, he sat beside me, close enough for warmth, but not too close for comfort. "I saw the articles," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just stared at the water, fighting the burn in my eyes. "Nathan, he's destroying my reputation, and I can't stop it." "Yes, you can." His voice was firm, not comforting, but empowering. He pulled out a black folder and set it in my lap. "This," he said, "is what will bring him down." Inside were spreadsheets, transaction logs, internal emails, evidence of fraud so blatant it made my stomach twist. Logan had been moving investor funds into private shell accounts for months, disguising it as operational restructuring. "How did you get this?" I whispered. Nathan hesitated. Then, "Because I'm not just a CEO, Evelyn. I'm the silent investor in Logan's fund. And I've been waiting for a reason to expose him. A real reason. One people would believe." I stared at him, stunned. You believed me? From the beginning?" He met my eyes with a softness I wasn't prepared for. "I didn't need proof to believe you, but I gathered proof to protect you." The wind howled, whipping my hair into my face, but for the first time in weeks, I felt anchored, grounded, not alone. Nathan placed his hand gently over mine. "You're not going to fight this by yourself. Not anymore." And in that moment, I realized something. Logan had power, but I had the truth, and someone willing to stand beside me when it mattered. That night, after Nathan handed me the black folder, something inside me shifted permanently. The fear that had kept me small for weeks began to peel away, layer by layer, replaced by a rising clarity. Logan wasn't untouchable. He wasn't invincible. He was simply unchallenged, until now. Nathan and I walked toward a quiet cafe tucked between two office buildings. The rain had settled into a soft mist, blurring Manhattan's neon lights into a watercolor glow. We took a booth in the back, far from curious eyes. "Before we do anything," Nathan said, lowering his voice, "you need to understand the scale of what he's done." I opened the folder again. Each page felt heavier than the last. Fabricated invoices, forged signatures, offshore transfers disguised as innovation grants. Logan hadn't just bent the rules, he detonated them. "He'll deny everything," I murmured. "He'll try," Nathan said, "but the evidence is airtight, and with you, he's given us the perfect opening." I frowned. "Me?" He nodded. "When he stole your ring and smeared your name, he created motive, sympathy, a narrative the public will follow. And once they start digging," he tapped the folder, "they'll find the rest." It was poetic in a way. Logan wanted a story that destroyed me. He accidentally created the story that would destroy him. But the plan wasn't complete. Not yet. "We need timing," Nathan continued, "and visibility. If we release this quietly, Logan will bury it. We need a moment he can't escape from, a moment too public to spin." My thoughts drifted to the invitation sitting in my inbox, the one Logan never expected me to see. His engagement gala. At the Plaza Hotel. Hundreds of guests, press coverage, investors. The perfect stage. A slow, steady resolve rose in my chest. I know when, I said. Nathan studied my face, a faint smile forming. You're stronger than you realize. But this wasn't strength, it was justice, and I could feel it sharpening inside me like a blade. I closed the folder and looked out the rain-streaked window, Manhattan glowing like a city made of opportunities and consequences. For the first time since this nightmare began, I could finally picture the end. Logan's lies collapsing, my name restored, my mother's legacy reclaimed, and maybe, just maybe, something new beginning with the man sitting across from me. The night before Logan's engagement gala felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One step forward, and everything would change forever. Manhattan glimmered outside my apartment window, but instead of comforting me, the skyline looked like a warning. Beautiful, distant, unforgiving. I laid everything out on my kitchen table. Nathan's black folder, the confidential certificate proving the real diamond existed, the appraisal for the worthless replica Brianna proudly wore, my mother's note. For hours, I rehearsed what tomorrow might look like. The ballroom, the lights, Logan's smug smile, the press waiting for their perfect story, and me walking into the lion's den with nothing but the truth. Fear tried to creep back in. It whispered its familiar lies. You're not strong enough. He'll twist the story. They'll believe him over you. But I wasn't the same woman who cried into her pillow 2 weeks ago. I wasn't the woman who let Logan decide her worth. I was the woman who held the truth, and truth had weight. Truth had power. Around 11 p.m., a knock echoed through my apartment. I stiffened before opening the door. Nathan stood there, hair slightly damp from the night air, concern etched into the lines around his eyes.
I wanted to check on you,
he said.
Tomorrow, it's gonna be big.
His presence softened something inside me. I stepped aside to let him in. He looked over the document spread across the table, then back at me.
Are you sure you want to do this alone?
I swallowed. It's my battle.
It doesn't have to be.
Nathan held my gaze, steady and unwavering.
I'll be at the plaza. You won't see me, but I'll be there.
Watching your back. Something warm stirred in my chest, something I wasn't ready to name yet. Thank you, I whispered. He nodded, his voice almost a whisper. He doesn't get to break you twice. After he left, I packed everything into a slim leather folder and placed it neatly beside my purse. Then I stood in front of the mirror, taking in the reflection of the woman staring back, tired, bruised by betrayal, but stronger than ever before. Tomorrow I would walk into the plaza not as a victim, but as the reckoning Logan never saw coming. The Plaza Hotel never looked more extravagant. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, and champagne fountains glimmered beneath towering arrangements of white roses. Guests flooded the golden ballroom dressed in Dior, Armani, and tailored tuxedos, each one eager to witness Logan Carver's grand performance. But none of them knew the script was about to change. I stepped out of the taxi, the cold night air brushing against my skin as I straightened my black dress, not the simple one I'd worn to the Ritz before. This was different, structured, elegant, a quiet declaration of strength. My heels clicked against the marble steps as I entered, drawing a few curious glances. To them, I was the ex-girlfriend who should have stayed home. To me, this room was the battlefield where everything would shift. Inside, a string quartet played soft classical music, blending with the hum of wealthy conversations. The air smelled of orchids and expensive perfume. Cameramen moved like hunting birds, waiting to catch the perfect angle of Logan and Brianna's engagement celebration. And then I saw them. Logan stood near the stage, laughing too loudly, too confidently. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo, ego polished to a shine. Brianna sparkled beside him, her champagne-colored gown hugging her like a second skin. She lifted her hand repeatedly to show off the ring, my mother's ring, letting it catch the chandelier light as if it were a crown jewel. My stomach tightened, but I didn't look away. Not tonight. Instead, I scanned the room for the one person I needed, Nathan. He said he'd be here, somewhere in the crowd. And though I didn't see him, I felt a strange anchor settle beneath my ribs, steadying me. A waiter passed, offering champagne. I took a glass, not to drink, but to keep my hands from shaking. Several guests recognized me. Their whispers followed like shadows. Is that her? The ex? Bold to show up. Bold wasn't the word. Necessary was. As the lights dimmed for Logan's opening speech, the crowd turned toward the stage. He adjusted the microphone, soaking in every pair of eyes on him. Thank you all for being here. His voice boomed through the ballroom. I stepped forward, my folder tucked tightly under my arm. Tonight was his moment, but I was about to take it back. Logan continued speaking, basking in the admiration of a room full of people who only knew the version of him he polished daily. Tonight, he said, smiling toward Brianna, is about celebrating love, truth, and new beginnings. The hypocrisy almost made me laugh. Almost. Because this time, I wasn't the silent observer. I stepped forward, my heels echoing against the marble, the sound slicing through the music and chatter. A few heads turned, then more. Conversations faltered. The spotlight operator, sensing movement that didn't belong, swung the beam across the ballroom and landed it directly on me. Logan's smile froze. Brianna blinked, confused, her hand instinctively rising to touch the ring. The ring that didn't belong to her. The ring that wasn't what she believed. I stopped at the foot of the stage, my folder held firmly at my side. Logan, I said, my voice steady. I think you forgot to mention something. A wave of murmurs rolled through the guests, cameras raised, reporters leaned forward with hungry eyes. They could smell scandal before it fully formed, and tonight I wasn't hiding any of it. Logan cleared his throat.
Evelyn, this is not the time.
Oh, I think it's exactly the time. I took the step slowly, deliberately, feeling the power shift with every move. When I reached him, we stood inches apart, him stiff and panicked, me calm and unshakable. I came to return something, I said. I pulled out the appraisal documents and let them unfold in my hand. This is the certification for the ring you gave Brianna. The ring you claimed was a 2-carat diamond. Brianna's face paled. Logan reached for the papers, but I stepped back. Don't worry, I said, projecting my voice so the entire ballroom could hear. I brought copies. The nearest cameraman zoomed in. Guests whispered louder. Someone gasped. This ring, I continued, turning toward Brianna, isn't a diamond. It's a synthetic stone worth less than $50. A replica my mother used to protect the real gem. Brianna staggered back, her fingers trembling around the ring. Logan's face drained of color. And the best part? I added, lifting a second sheet. You publicly accused me of stealing it when you stole it from me. The room erupted. Reporters surged. Guests recoiled. Logan's empire of lies had cracked, and everyone was watching it collapse. Chaos rippled through the ballroom like a sudden storm. Guests turned in every direction, whispering, pointing, recording. Logan's carefully curated world, every lie, every polished smile, was unraveling under the heat of 100 camera lights. But he wasn't done fighting. Men like Logan never accept defeat. They claw, twist, and manipulate until their last breath. He grabbed the microphone, voice shaking but defiant.
Everyone, this woman is lying. She's unstable. This is exactly why I ended things with her. She's trying to sabotage my engagement.
The crowd gasped again, this time softer, uncertain. Some believed him, some didn't. The air thickened with tension, ready to snap. I didn't flinch. Really, Logan? I asked, my voice steady, cutting clean through the noise. Then maybe you should explain this. I pulled out the final document, Nathan's evidence, the one that would bury him completely. These, I said, holding up the pages, are internal financial records from your fund. Details of investor money you funneled into private shell companies. Money you claimed was for development, while you spent it on luxury trips, private gifts, and your mistress. A collective gasp spread through the ballroom like wildfire. Logan's face twisted. That's fabricated. She hacked something, or Nathan. But before he could finish, a new voice emerged from the crowd. Nathan stepped forward, calm and composed in his charcoal suit, the embodiment of credibility. It's all real, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly. I am the silent investor in Logan's fund. I verified every transfer myself. What Evelyn is showing you is the truth. Camera flashes erupted. Guests stepped back from Logan as if corruption were contagious. Brianna looked between us, her face drained, hands shaking violently. You used investor money? She whispered. Logan, tell me this isn't real. Instead of answering, he lunged toward the papers in my hands, desperate to rip them away. But Nathan intercepted him, gripping his wrist firmly. Don't touch her. Logan froze. For the first time in his life, power didn't bend toward him, it bent away. Security approached. Guests watched, wide-eyed. Reporters surged closer. His facade was collapsing piece by piece. I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp enough to cut. You should have left me with nothing, Logan. Then maybe I would have stayed quiet. His eyes widened. But you took from me, and now I'm taking back everything. The ballroom erupted once more, and this time no one stood with him. For a long, breathless moment, the ballroom froze, as if no one dared inhale while Logan's world collapsed in front of them. Cameras flashed, security lingered, reporters whispered into microphones. Logan stood in the middle of the chaos, shoulders heaving, eyes wild with panic. But the next crack didn't come from me. It came from Brianna. She stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth as the documents sank in. The ring, my mother's worthless replica, glittered mockingly beneath the chandelier. You lied to me, she whispered. About everything. Logan spun toward her, voice frantic. Brianna, baby, listen. No! She snapped, stepping away as dozens of phones pointed at her. You told me it was a flawless diamond. You said you spent months designing it for me. Her voice broke. You gave me a fake ring and bought vacations with stolen money? Logan reached for her, desperate. She recoiled. Don't touch me! Gasps rippled across the room. And then Brianna did something no one expected. She pulled out her phone. You want to lie? She said, her voice cracking but loud enough to echo. Fine, let's tell them the whole truth. With trembling fingers, she tapped her screen and held it up. A video began to play. Logan's voice filled the ballroom. Of course it's fake. Why would I waste real money on a ring? She'll believe anything. They all do. A collective roar filled the air. Shock, disgust, outrage. Cameramen surged forward. Investors cursed under their breath. Logan lunged toward Brianna. Turn it off! Turn it! Security stepped between them, but Brianna wasn't done. Tears streaked her makeup as she turned toward me, voice shaking. Evelyn, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know it was yours. For the first time, I saw not the polished influencer, but a frightened young woman caught in a game she didn't understand. I nodded once, calm, controlled, because tonight wasn't about vengeance against her. She wasn't the architect of this disaster. Logan was. Logan's voice cracked into a scream. You ruined everything! No, I said softly, stepping forward as the room silenced again. You ruined yourself. Security moved in. Guests parted. Reporters shouted his name, and as Logan Carver was escorted out of his own engagement gala, a stunning silence swept across the ballroom, a silence that felt like justice finally taking its first breath. By the next morning, New York City was vibrating with the fallout from Logan's public downfall. The moment I opened my eyes, my phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, messages from coworkers, calls from unknown numbers. Headlines blinked across every screen like neon warnings. Investor Logan Carver exposed during engagement gala. Fake diamond, real scandal. Ex-girlfriend and whistleblower speak out. I sat at the edge of my bed, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city through my window. For once, the skyline didn't intimidate me. It felt honest, like it had finally said something true. But the biggest shock wasn't the media frenzy, it was the public response. People weren't calling me unstable or vindictive anymore, they were calling me brave. TikTok edits were already circulating of the moment I revealed the ring's appraisal, edited with dramatic music and slow-motion zooms. Twitter was on fire with clips of Brianna's confession and Logan screaming as security dragged him out. Journalists requested interviews. Women messaged me thanking me for standing up for every girl who lost something to a man like him. And for a moment, I allowed myself to breathe, to feel proud. But relief didn't last long. A knock echoed through my apartment. I opened the door to find 2 federal investigators, stern suits, badges gleaming. "Miss Hart?" the taller one asked. "Yes?" "We'd like to talk to you about Mr. Carver's financial activity. We understand you possess documents relevant to our investigation." My stomach tightened. This wasn't just scandal anymore. This was criminal. I invited them in, hands trembling only slightly as I offered the folder. They examined each page carefully, asking precise questions. A part of me feared Logan would somehow twist this too. Frame me, blame me, rewrite the narrative like he always had. But when the investigators looked up, there was no suspicion in their eyes, only respect. "You've helped us more than you know," one said. "This evidence completes what we've been building for months. You may have saved a lot of people from losing millions." Saved people. Not just myself. After they left, I leaned against the door, breath shaking. It hit me then. The truth hadn't just exposed Logan, it had freed me. And yet, beneath that freedom, something warmer flickered, a message from Nathan. "Meet me tonight. There's something you need to know." My heart clenched. The storm was over, but something new was beginning. I met Nathan that evening at a quiet rooftop bar overlooking the Hudson River. Unlike the chaotic night I'd spent here with Logan, drowning in false luxury and forced laughter, this rooftop felt peaceful, real. The wind carried the scent of rain. The city lights flickered like scattered diamonds, and for the first time in weeks, my heart wasn't racing from fear. Nathan stood near the railing, hands in his coat pockets, staring out at the water as if gathering his thoughts. When he turned toward me, something in his eyes softened. "You came," he said. "I told you I would." He motioned to a small table. 2 glasses waited, ginger ale for me, whiskey for him. I sat down, nerves fluttering beneath my ribs, unsure of what he needed to say. "I watched what happened to you," he began. "The betrayal, the humiliation, the way Logan tried to crush you, and I wanted to step in sooner, but—" He paused, searching for the right words. "I knew you weren't ready then, but you are now." I swallowed. Ready for what? He took a breath, steady but weighted. Ready to understand why I cared so much, why I helped you, why I couldn't walk away. My pulse quickened, not with anxiety, but something warmer, something unfamiliar. "Nathan." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, gentle, hesitant, as if asking permission to cross a line that had been there too long. "I didn't just believe you because it was right," he said. "I believed you because I've cared about you for a long time, longer than I ever admitted, even to myself." The world paused. The city hummed below us, but everything else fell away. "I know you're healing," he continued. "I'm not asking you for anything. I just needed you to know the truth." The honesty in his voice hit deeper than I expected. Not dramatic, not demanding, just pure, quiet sincerity. Everything Logan had never been. My eyes burned, not from pain, but from relief so overwhelming it felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. "Nathan," I whispered, "I don't know what the future looks like, but I don't want you to go anywhere." A small smile tugged at his lips. "I won't." For the first time, my heart didn't feel broken. It felt open. And tomorrow, with Nathan beside me, I would face the final reckoning. The next morning, the sky over Manhattan was a soft gold, calm in a way that felt symbolic, as if the city itself understood that something long overdue was about to conclude. I walked toward the federal building with steady footsteps, Nathan beside me, not leading, not pushing, simply walking with me, matching my pace, matching my resolve. Inside, investigators reviewed the final statements, the evidence from Nathan, the documents from my mother, the video Brianna leaked. Every lie Logan crafted now stood under fluorescent lights with nowhere left to hide. By midday, the news broke. Logan Carver arrested on multiple fraud charges. Investors file lawsuit after gala expose. Whistleblower Evelyn Hart clears her name. I read each headline slowly, breathing them in like oxygen. For the first time since the betrayal began, my name wasn't twisted into something ugly. It was tied to strength, to truth, to justice. But the final closure came when I received a call from an unknown number. It was Brianna. Her voice was softer now, tired, humbled. "I just wanted to say thank you," she whispered, "for exposing him, for saving me from marrying a fraud." I didn't expect gratitude, but it warmed something inside me. "Take care of yourself, Brianna," I said. "You deserve a clean start, too." When the call ended, a quiet peace settled over me. Revenge hadn't healed me. Truth had. That evening, Nathan took me to the River Cafe, a place where the Brooklyn Bridge lit up the water like a trail of stars. We sat outside, the air cool, the city glowing around us. "You did it," he said gently. "We did it," I corrected. He smiled, the kind that wasn't flashy or performative, just honest. The kind that made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. As dessert arrived, he reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Evelyn, whatever pace you need, whatever future you want, I'm here. Not because you need me, but because I want to be someone who earns a place in your life." My chest tightened, not in pain, but in something warm and steady. "I'd like that," I whispered. Above us, the bridge lights shimmered, reflected in the water like a promise. My mother's real diamond, secure in its vault, was no longer a symbol of loss. It was a symbol of possibility, of a life rebuilt, of a woman who refused to stay broken. And as Nathan's fingers intertwined with mine, I realized something simple and powerful. This wasn't the ending, it was my beginning. So, that's how our story comes to an end tonight. And if you are still here, listening until this very moment, then something in Evelyn's journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or of a moment you survived even when you thought you couldn't. Life has a way of breaking us just enough to reveal who we truly are. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." Sometimes what hurts us becomes exactly what shapes us. Sometimes the betrayal that shatters us becomes the doorway to a life we never imagined we deserved. And maybe tonight, this story whispered a small truth to you. You are stronger than what tried to break you. You are allowed to rise again. You are allowed to choose peace, dignity, and a future that loves you back. If Evelyn's journey gave you even a little courage or comfort, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Not for the numbers, but so these stories of healing and justice can reach someone else who needs them. Thank you for staying with me. You matter more than you know. Before we wrap up, I want to gently remind everyone that this entire story is a work of fiction, created purely for entertainment, emotional reflection, and personal inspiration. None of the characters, events, or situations are based on real people or real incidents. Any similarity is completely coincidental. Our goal here is to explore themes of healing, courage, and self-worth through storytelling, not to present factual events or real-life accusations. These narratives are crafted to connect with your emotions, offer perspective, and remind you that every setback can lead to growth, just as the Stoics taught. Thank you for watching with an open heart and understanding the creative nature of this content. If you enjoy stories like this, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel.